Hi, friends. This is Eric Barnett, and you are listening to Songs of the Unsung. Songs of the Unsung is a podcast where I talk to fellow singer-songwriters about their music and the craft of songwriting. Also, I host a monthly songwriter showcase at Free House Brewing. The first showcase was a blast. It was on December 12th, and we had Noah Grove, Ben Somewhere, and Mike Friend sharing their songs for us. Check out videos of that on our YouTube channel. The next showcase is scheduled for Sunday, January 23rd from 2 to 5 p.m. and will feature Dan Riley, Chris Dodson, and Scotty Oliver. We hope to see you there. This week's guest is Dan Riley. Dan's a father, a singer-songwriter, and the founder of the Knightsville Porch Jam and the Edisto Blackwater Boogie. Dan is a super nice guy with a very interesting story, but I'll let you find that out on your own. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Awesome. How you doing, man?
Really good. It's good to have you here, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. So I haven't actually hung out with you much at all. I think I ran into you maybe a couple times.
Yeah.
But I definitely, follow you on Facebook and YouTube and such. So have an appreciation for what you do.
Thank you.
And one thing I try to do on this podcast is I try to research. It might seem a little weird, but if it's out there about you, I know about it.
Oh, man.
Maybe not to that extent, but I always want to say there are other resources out there. Like you were on the MUFIC, you were the Songwriter of the Month for March 2020.
Yep.
That was right. That was right at the beginning of something, wasn't it? And then you were on Craft Conversations with my buddy Brian Dales. Yeah. So I don't want this to replace those. So I always say, go check those out. Go check out the MUFIC video, the Craft Conversations podcast. I'll even give you a little something to look forward to. Dan says a really funny story about hiking in Ferry Falls. He also talks about long distance running. So I won't rehash what those things are. Let's blaze our own trail here, man.
That's right, man.
So from Rhode Island.
That's right. Portsmouth.
Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Yeah, but see, a lot of people know where Newport is. It's a Navy town, and so a lot of people are familiar with the shipyard and everything there. But I lived on the opposite side of the island. Also in Newport, they've got these huge mansions that people go and check out. It's where the rich people summered back when people, I guess, used to build mansions more often. Sure. I don't know. Yeah. It was the day when mansions were more popular, I guess. I guess they're more popular, or still popular.
Well, we live in Charleston where, good money's thrown after bad. So
but anyway, so I was on the opposite end of the island, the poor side. So
there's the rich side and the poor side of Rhode Island, and there's really not much more. I mean,
no, there's not much in the middle either.
Right. Yeah. You go for a drive, you're out of it pretty quick.
Yeah.
How long? When did you move to Charleston?
So I actually moved to Goose Creek back in 1994.
Okay.
So, that was fun. My parents, I just had turned 18 and graduated high school. My parents decided we were going to move here. I wasn't going to college, and my parents' health wasn't that great. So I wanted to, I said, I'll help you move, get settled in and all that. And then I'm coming back to Rhode Island because I don't want to live in Goose Creek for the rest of my life. What in the world is Goose Creek?
Right.
And so anyway, I moved here and I'm still here. All right. Never made it back to Rhode Island.
Right on. Yeah. Right on. So let's see. You started playing guitar 12 years or so, 12 years old?
Yeah. Between 13 and 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my uncle had given me a old guitar that he had in his basement, and it needed some work. And so, I, as well as a young teenager could do, I fixed it up and got it working and played that for a while.
Right on. You kind of came from a musical family, brothers playing guitar, father playing guitar.
Yep. Yeah. My dad, he played quite a bit. he played piano and guitar, and he would play the Beatles and some Bob Dylan songs.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
He was a hippie pretty much growing up, so any kind of anti-government kind of songs you could
now,
think of.
So was he a hippie and also a Jehovah's Witness at the same time?
He became a Jehovah's Witness after he was a hippie.
After he was okay.
Yeah, so I think
so he's a reformed, in his eyes, a reformed hippie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yep.
So you'd said in other interviews that even though you had a father that played guitar, brothers that played guitar, you were kind of on your own, kind of had to figure out your own thing. Yeah.
That was just the way it was in my family. Sure. We would, my father would play, and my brother was kind of not a virtuoso, but just a natural. He's just not really musically inclined. And
some people are like that.
Yeah, and he could play. I remember him playing Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Eddie Van Halen, and just hitting every note. And so I'd be like, Pat, show me, like, how do you do that? What do you do? And he'd go, and he'd just play this fast lick, and he said, you just go like this, and I'm like, well, that's super helpful.
Yeah,
thanks, jerk.
I had heard you say that early on you had dyslexia as a child, so it kind of really inhibited learning other people's things just because the difficulties therein, and so you started writing your own stuff. Yeah,
right out of the gate, basically. It was just easier for me. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Any of it like you still can stomach listening to or singing?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some of it back in the old files somewhere. But there's one song, like a kind of a bluesy kind of song I wrote when I was in high school.
Okay.
I had this teacher, I actually took a guitar in high school. There was like guitar theory class.
Okay.
And the teacher didn't know how to play guitar, but he knew theory.
Sure.
And so that's what he was teaching us.
Right.
He was an older guy, Mr. Keklejian, older Armenian guy. And he was something else. He was a riot, but he taught us theory. The guitar part of it was just like, put your fingers here, kind of thing.
Sure.
And so he taught us some blues, like the 12-bar blues. Mm-hmm. I learned it from Mr. Keklejian, and so he taught us that. And one of our assignments was to write something with that. And so I wrote this song, and I still play it sometimes at gigs and stuff.
Excellent.
So,
when did you begin performing? Were you like the kid who was always like had to be the life of the party and everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I started performing out of the womb, I think.
That's good, man. It's a head start. You get used to it. You get used to being up in front of people. Get all your nerves out of the way. Awesome.
And being raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, that's one of the things you have to do or they expect you to do as a Jehovah's Witness is you have to stand up in front of the congregation and talk and give talks and like do Bible readings and all this stuff. So that got me used to being in front of people for sure, and
kind of sending you out to. Did you get sent out to like proselytize?
Oh yeah.
Just having to cold call people and.
I mean, I'm pretty good at taking rejection.
Sure, I would surmise. Yeah, absolutely.
I've mastered that skill pretty well. Yeah.
And you said kind of early on the blues took hold of you too. Some Stevie Ray Vaughan earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely hear that in what you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
I know that you don't love the tag Americana. I just don't like a tag of any sorts.
No, yeah, me either. And so I've worked really hard to try to come up with, because people ask you, well, what kind of music do you play?
Right.
And now I say American roots.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling people now. For at least for this minute.
Well, every genre is so loaded. I mean, some people ask me like what I do, and I'm like, well, it's singer-songwriter stuff, like a guy and a guitar, like back in the 70s. And they're like, well, who do you listen to? I'm like, well, I love Tom Waits, but I don't sound anything like him.
Right. Well, nobody does.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be Tom Petty Part 2, but that's not in the cards either. So, and then when you talk about blues, people think like 12-bar blues.
Right. Yeah. Or they think like, the fancy leads and things like that. And that's not me. But I actually had a guy, I was playing at the Flowertown Festival this past year, and this older guy came up and he just stood in front. He was standing in front of me, listened to a song, and then he stepped over to the side a little bit and listened to another song. He was just standing there. So in between songs, he comes up. He says, "Your music confuses me."
Thanks.
I laughed and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "What kind of music is it?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of a mixture of, I think, different types of music."
Yeah.
And he said, "Is it cowboy music?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. That's what I play, cowboy music."
If you gave me the option of like radio country from the last 15 years or cowboy music, it's an easy decision on my part.
Right.
Yeah. Loves me some cowboy music.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like, how like a John Hyatt sort of straddles the line?
John Hyatt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man.
Man.
As bad as I am with gear as I am with people, performers.
He kind of does. He's a songwriter. I mean, it's you can't pin him down.
Okay.
I mean, like he's done stuff that's rockier, poppier. He's done folkier stuff, but he brings sort of that kind of blues is more of a vocal inflection or a, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's, I usually say bluesy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I add that Y on the end because then people don't expect too much.
Right. So were you performing your own songs in Rhode Island or did that start here?
No, that started here. I didn't really play any gigs until I moved here. Okay. And once I started, I was playing in like downtown Charleston at Millennium Music back in the day, which was that was kind of one of my standard gigs, and a few other places. But I played when I first started playing. I only wanted to play original music. I was like, covers suck. Like, I'm never going to play a cover. And that was because I couldn't learn them. So I was like, forget covers.
Well, when I moved here, I really was going to try that route because, I'm one of the many from Ohio. I'll admit to it. But
that's okay, man.
Back in Ohio, you could play like a gig where it's 3 songwriters in a night and y'all just play your own music and maybe sneak a fun cover in, it's the exception and not the rule. But here, the hard part here is, to fill 3 hours and to get hired, you got to play some songs people know.
Yeah.
The choice is how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Yeah.
It's, and my line in the sand is always just, I don't play a song I don't like.
Yeah.
And I don't bring the iPad to the gig, and that actually helps because if somebody says, can you play such and such? And I say, I don't know that. And they'll say, can you look it up? And I'll say, I don't have an iPad. And that's just my reason. That's my way of being
there you go, man.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I can't. Do you have a dictionary of songs for me?
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I've got about 120 in my head right now, and you're going to hear one of those. Yeah, I don't want to flat out tell people I don't like Tennessee whiskey, but I don't.
That's okay, man. To each their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, at what age did you break from being a Jehovah's Witness?
I was 32.
32.
Yeah.
Wow.
32 years old. So, I had been very involved, deep into it, was raised, born and raised that way. And, was what they call an elder in the congregation. Wow. Appointed to that when I was, I think it was 20, it was either 24 or 25. I was very young for that.
Yeah.
But I was just super into it, man.
Yeah.
It was definitely my entire life. So. Was
there doubt in there at all?
Not really. Frankly, it took me about 7 years of being out of it to really recognize that I would never go back to it.
Okay.
Because I actually thought that one day I would probably go back, But yeah, it was the reason I left initially was because basically the demise of my first marriage. And so that was something that I had to get out of, and there's not an easy way to do that in Jehovah's Witness land.
No, I from what little I know about it, I know that. And also from what little I know about it, I know that like community and familial ties are huge when you're in it. And I know like within your family and within your church, and you had a lot of support structure built in that when you decided I got a break from this for a minute and figure things out, that just cut off just completely.
Yeah, it goes away. And so that's one of the, like, now I recognize that religion as a cult, essentially, because you know that you have to believe 100% of everything. Yeah, you can't there's no outside ideas allowed, and you're not allowed to associate with people outside of it. So they really create this culture of exclusivity and not inclusivity, and they'll say that they welcome all, but
as long as you're towing the line.
Right.
Yeah.
They're very welcoming as long as you're progressing in the way that they want you to. But as soon as you're not, then they're not welcoming anymore. And so, I mean, I haven't. I left when I was 32. I actually went back for like 6 months when I was 35, and then I left again.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to my family, and not a single member of my parents or my brothers or sister or anybody since then. So
wow. Yeah. I have a friend. She's experiencing the same thing. Like,
oh wow,
when she got remarried, like her parents weren't there, and we were kind of just like, hey, Nikki, what's up? Oh, I'm Jehovah's Witness. I don't speak to my parents, and I was like, it's an eye opener, man. Especially since I can't imagine. Emotions are a very hard thing to navigate.
Yeah.
Especially if that's been your whole life and you have people who suggest to you, just come back and it'll all be back to normal.
Yeah. And, and here's one of the things too. I did try to go back.
Yeah.
After about 2 years going out, like there's a process of going back. And so, I left. I came back, I left again. And so then it's called being reinstated into the congregation, basically. And so I for 2 years, I kind of worked at this thing. And then I went and I applied for reinstatement, and essentially was told that they didn't, the judicial committee, or these men who make the decisions, that, felt that I wasn't repentant enough. And so that I would just have to wait until some undesignated time in the future. And that was kind of when I started to, I still at that point believed them. I was like, well, if they say that, then they're probably right. They have God's blessing on them. And who am I to question that? And just totally, really just brainwashed in it. And that after a little while, though, that's the thing that made me start to question, because had any of my family reached out to me at any point and said, Dan, I love you, and just keep working at it, like, I know you can do it. If someone had said that to me, I would probably be in it right now.
Wow.
But so they did me a favor by not talking to me. I mean, I'm glad that I have the clarity that I have now, but like with the being cut off part of it, it's just, I mean, to not have your father or mother to talk to, your brothers and sisters who were my best friends like my entire life,
right?
And now just last month, man, so I have two children from my first marriage, and my oldest daughter, she just turned 18, and her mother has raised her as one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow.
And so she just turned 18, and because she turned 18 and became an adult, she's chosen not to continue her relationship with me. Wow. Even though she's one of my best friends in the world, and like one of the people I'm closest to, and vice versa for her, but that's how strong that that cult really is they just really have a grip on the people who choose to follow. And so, as with the rest of my family, I don't hold any anger or resentment towards her or them. I know that they're doing what they think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But this song's called I Won't Say Goodbye.
All right.
And I won't. Here we go.
All right.
The moment my skin was the first to touch yours, to love and protect you all my days I swore. I wrapped you up, I held you tight, kept you by my side that night. That's why I can't see a day without you and you without me. I know that faith is thicker than blood. I've known for years that this day would come, but I won't, no I won't say goodbye, no I won't, no I won't say goodbye. When I looked in your eyes, my future was set. The time stood still when our hearts met. The time has a way of falling apart. Now you're grown, soon to move on. I just can't see a day without you and you without me. I know that faith is thicker than blood. Known for years that this day would come, but I won't, no I won't say goodbye, no I won't, no I won't say goodbye. Always be here and loved by your side. A phone call away when you need a ride. An ear and a hug when you need to cry. So I won't, no I won't say goodbye, no I won't, no I won't say goodbye.
Oh, very nice, man.
Thank you.
Damn, that's a good one.
Thanks.
when you start off as a child and that's what you're raised with and that's what your mind is formed around, I can't imagine the indoctrination that comes in with that. And I mean, on the bright side, from what I can see and what I can tell from seeing you, is that you've chosen not to continue a cycle of conditional love.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, there's two kinds of people. When they're raised a certain way or treated a certain way, they perpetuate it and they say, well, that I must have deserved it and everyone around me deserves it. Or they can say, listen, everybody's worthy of love, regardless of, this indoctrination or these, dogmatic beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from what I can tell, just hearing the songs that you write and the things that you say, and that, you're able to, it's kind of possibly giving you an outlook that otherwise you wouldn't have.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so while there's a lot of pain and grief involved in my life, basically, just, I try to use love to just kind of transmute that. And I've never been like an angry person. I've always been pretty easygoing.
Yeah.
And this situation with my daughter with that happening, it's brought out some anger that I didn't know was there.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw a guy walk out of a hair salon the other day, and he had he just gotten his hair cut.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that guy needs to be punched in the face. I was like, whoa, who was that? Where'd that come from?
Well, but I know, at least from my own standpoint, I don't want to go into my own backstory or what have you. However, my wife has been the biggest therapist, partner. We've grown together in such a way. And do you find that in your own life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jana, she's just, she's been really a rock through this for me, and just supported me so much, and super understanding of what I'm going through. And obviously she's going through it too. It's not just me. And
sure.
And for her to see me, be treated in the way that I am, or not treated in a way at all.
Sure. Yeah.
That's hard for her too. And so, we try to be there for each other to lean on when the time calls for it. But she's, right on. She's awesome, man.
And it looks like the songwriting's another outlet for this as well.
Absolutely.
The only song I've been able to find on a streaming platform is Mama.
Yeah.
Is that it for right now?
That is. And so I've been trying to record an album for the last 30 years. And I don't know, sometimes I wonder, do I not like my music? But
yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
I was thinking about it. And I've thought about this often, but I was thinking about it on the ride over here tonight too. And it's like, I feel like in a lot of ways I operate, when it comes to my music, I operate in a place of fear, kind of. Yep. And, because I've recorded songs at like 6 or 7 different studios. I have stuff that could be released. I have stuff that is like close to being good enough in my mind to be released. But then when I listen to it, I'm like, it's just not.
Let me ask you that, because you're reading out of my diary right now. Is it the fear of a finality of a release? Like once you put it out there, it's out there. You can't reel it back in.
I think that's part of it. But then too, like, one thing that I've realized is that a lot of people record different versions of the same song and they release them multiple times. And so I really think for me, it boils down to letting go.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
And especially with like, I've written I've written different albums over the years, and the album that I currently have and that will be released at some point that Mama is a part of is called Waking Up, and that album is about my experience essentially of coming out and waking up to the realization that the world I thought was real wasn't.
Right. Right.
And so that will come eventually. And I forget where I was going with that. I trailed off. What were we talking about?
Anything just, more to release, the finality. Albums.
Yeah, the finality of it. And so, and letting go. And so I think with this album in particular, it's super important to me to have it be correct.
I feel you. Yeah.
There are really hundreds of thousands of people around the world that are in the same boat that I am, that have left Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
And are shunned by their families because of it.
Yeah.
And so the album is not, it's my experience, but it's not just about me or for me.
Right. It's a mission statement. It's a,
right.
Yeah. It's putting it out there and saying, you guys aren't alone. This is a thing.
Yeah. It's such a bigger thing than it seems like, though, because so if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you leave, that's one thing. You're either disassociated or disfellowshipped. Either one, your family just doesn't talk to you. But then if you speak out against Jehovah's Witnesses, then you become what's called an apostate. So that means you're essentially the Antichrist.
Right.
So I'm now the Antichrist. Just in case you haven't interviewed the Antichrist before.
First time. I had him come in about a month, but I'll tell him I got to you first.
Yeah.
But so from your mindset is like, this has to count.
Right. Yeah. It definitely has to count. And I think we were talking before we started recording about, like, stylistically, there's a rawness and a stripped downness that I want to capture, but there's also an ambience to it that that I feel needs to be built as well. And so Josh Jarman, right?
I only know I don't think I've actually ever met. I think I might have met him once unknowingly. Yeah.
So I went and recorded some songs with Josh, and we've worked on some stuff together. And he's got a real cool kind of ear for ambient sound and that sort of thing. And so, there are some of the songs that we've worked on that I feel like are really close to being released. And who knows? I might just I've thought about just saying, "What the heck? Just pull the trigger and just release it and just let it go." But letting it go, getting it back to that, I just don't think I'm ready to let this go. And also, part of me is like, do I want to continue to identify myself with this? Because
it could be a thing that you put out there and you say, there, I said it. Mm-hmm. Now I can talk about what I want to talk, or, now I can move on from, or, as much as anyone can move on from it. Now I can cleanse the palate and
and so there's
sing about a sunny day, or whatever.
Just a battle in my mind.
I got you. When I made my record, it was songs that I had around for years, and I actually had made an EP at one point that I think I pretty successfully wiped off the face of the earth, which in a digital time is a tough thing to do. But what happened?
I'm going to find that EP, man.
Oh, it's out there. What had happened was we were moving to Charleston, and I had worked in a factory for 13 years, and the factory closed. So it was my chance to get out. So I had 6 months of unemployment that I was staying behind and selling the house. And my wife came down here 6 months ahead to try to find a job, find an apartment, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I sat in that empty house and I did a Kickstarter campaign. And I was like, hey, can we fund this record? And I record my own stuff, and I think I'm really hard to work with. So I played all the instruments just because there's no democracy when it comes to my music. I know what I want, and I'm going to do it or die trying. So I sat in basically an empty house. I gave myself like a month and a half. And then I had a really good friend of mine named Tim Fry, another friend of mine named Matt Bauman. And I told those two guys, I'm like, listen, you're my producers. I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to send it to you. And then at some point, take it away from me. Whether, you know what I mean? When I'm done, take this away from me because I'll tinker with it. I'll play with it.
Right. Forever.
Yeah. I'll second guess myself. I'll decide the whole thing's terrible and I'll delete every file. Right. So that was at least what I had to do. But again, it wasn't this big message in the same way that yours is. It was, and it's something where I look back on it and absolutely, like, I want to record every single note on it, but it's a document of the time.
Yeah.
And I go back and listen to everything I've ever done and hate every little bit of it. But occasionally I'm like, that's not as bad as I thought it was.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I think maybe I'm taking this too seriously.
I'll tell you something though. You have been out and about like I have, and you have seen plenty of musicians who have no doubt about their abilities. And I call that completely unearned self-confidence. So, I'm one of those guys where it really took me a lot to play in front of people, to play my own songs in front of people, to get vulnerable in front of people.
Yeah.
So I just feel like the more we're down on ourselves, it just means we're sharpening that edge even sharper. You know what I'm saying?
All right, man. I'll take that.
Yeah, man.
We're sharpening it up.
Yeah, you got to look for that silver lining and everything, man. So the Mama single, did Josh record that?
No, so I've got some really great friends who just are opening a studio in North Charleston called Soulshine Studio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And my friend Everett is kind of that's his brainchild.
Okay.
There. And we've been friends for several years, and he knows my story, and he's got Everett, you should have on the podcast, unrelated to music one day, because that dude, he's got his hands into everything.
His last name?
White.
Okay, Everett White. Okay.
Yeah, so one of his big things is the fossil hunter.
Okay.
And so he is got some projects in relation to fossil hunting and some other projects going on. And he had a producer here who's worked on documentaries and whatnot.
Okay.
So he was telling me about him, was like, do you think we could record this? I wanted to release Mama this past year in time for Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And so we did the song and the video, and really this is another thing about me recording. I'm giving up all my secrets here, man. What are you doing to me?
Oh man.
I have a really hard time feeling like I hit it when I'm not playing and singing at the same time.
Okay.
So for me, like, I have to play and sing at the same time to really feel it. And so for me to sing over a track or record over even if I'm trying to record to a scratch track, it doesn't convey the same feeling for some reason to me. And so I went into their studio and we were working on it for a few hours trying to just get that track, and we were trying to track it separately and just trying different stuff. And then I was like, you know what, that's it. It's good enough. It's good enough. And Everett came in and he's like, no, he's like, you know what, just do one more. Just sit on the couch over here. And that was the one.
Those are always the best. It's the ones where you're like, forget about all this stuff we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Just sit and play the damn song.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's usually the ones that turn out. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and for me, that's one of the things, it's one of the reasons why I like organizing music events and playing live music and having fires and playing music around a fire, because that, to me, sharing music is about that exchange of energy. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm hesitant about releasing my stuff, because then I don't get to experience that exchange of energy.
It's hard to capture that too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some bands that I've seen live a couple of times, and then I go to listen to their record and I'm like, they didn't they couldn't capture that.
No, and you just can't. There's no.
Some people can't. Some people, like, the record is. There are people that are meant for recording, and there are people that are meant for live. It doesn't mean you can't do the other thing. But
right. Yeah. No, I agree.
It's a hard transition too. I mean, we're just people who play music part-time that are trying to do our thing. I mean, it's not like we have, producers that make millions of dollars putting us in studios that's $500 an hour, because they know how to do it.
Right.
They could squeeze whatever it is out of you, trust me, and then and then edit and auto-tune it and pitch correct it and do every little thing to squeeze it into the. But we just got to work with what we got.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a dad.
Yeah. So were you happy with the way it turned out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know how it is. You're
happy as you can be.
As happy as I can be. Yeah.
You're happy that you allowed it to get out some days.
I really am. And that's the main thing, is that for me, sharing that in particular, that song was about reaching out to, I posted that like on a lot of XJW forums and things like that. Yeah. And I got a lot of feedback from people who are going through the same thing that I'm going through, that just, thanked me, and we're just grateful to have a way to express their, feel their emotions, because you learn to compartmentalize when, grieving the living is a really weird thing.
Yeah.
Because like my parents live 20 minutes from me, and I could go drive up to their house any day, but they wouldn't talk to me
come to the door
if I went to the door. Yeah. And so,
but I have a feeling if they showed up at your door, you'd go to the door.
Oh, of course. Obviously.
That's the,
obviously.
That's the damn shame of it, man.
But, so being able to put that out and then have feedback from people going through the same thing, saying like, I haven't allowed myself to cry or feel this, and now this opened me up, and it hurts, but thank you.
The one thing that I've always wanted back from music is, it's all well and good to make money. I work for a living.
Right. Yeah, me too.
So it's all well and good to make money.
Not that playing music isn't work. We're not.
I don't want it to. I don't want it to become work though.
Right.
I always want to have fun with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, especially if I'm writing a real vulnerable or personal song, it's to have somebody say, like, I know how you feel, or I feel the way you feel, or, you get it, or that. To me, that's more than the pittance that we get for playing 3-hour cover gigs around town.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that connection for me. Connection is what it's all about. It's connecting with other humans and having that shared moment and shared experience that you can't really have any other way. I'm an emotional dude when it comes to songs. Like I'll be in a dark room. Me both.
Yeah, I'll be in a dark room listening to a song and like tear up, just because it'll take me to a place, and to be able to try to do that, to me, is what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a newer one that I wrote. And going through this healing process that I've been going through, one thing that I've found is that when bad things happen and when situations come up where there's individuals who have broken your heart, basically, bitterness can be something that comes up pretty easily.
Yeah.
Or resentment. And so that's one of like my main goals in life, is not to carry any bitterness or resentment with me, because it doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve anybody really. Even if that person has, I mean, it's so weird to have this happen, but even just this past weekend, I have a friend that's struggling. He's been fighting alcoholism. And And I've been there for him on different occasions, and he lashed out at me this weekend in a way that I didn't expect. And it was like, whoa, like that hurts, you know, but I know you're sick, and I know you're broken, and we're all sick and broken in one way or another, just some to greater extents or lesser extents.
Right.
And so like, I can't hold bitterness or resentment towards him. And so, that's kind of what this was about, is keeping your heart open no matter what you're going through, because once you close it off, I think that's when darkness can set in. So
right on.
This one's called A Broken Heart. A broken heart is an open heart if you let it live and breathe. Drown it in some tears, bathe it in old memories. Let those feelings roll from the depths of your soul. Burn out everything that is old. A broken heart is an open heart if you wrap it up real tight. Hold it in the love you find hiding in plain sight. A fire flickering late into the night. The stars smiling down on you. A broken heart is an open heart if you let it live and breathe. Accept the love your friends give and keep their company. Yes, a broken heart is gonna hurt. A broken heart is gonna scream. A broken heart will break you down to your knees. A broken heart is an open heart if you let it live and breathe. A broken heart is an open heart if you let it live and breathe. A broken heart is an open heart if you let it live and breathe.
Very nice.
Thank you, man.
So, balancing this music with the family and the work and everything. I've heard you say you try to get gigs that get you home before 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Where are they, man?
Yeah, the earlier the gig, the better. Well, I make them. I create those gigs for myself. I'm like, all right, you look like a place that will host music. I want to play music here from 6 to 9. Or
right.
5:30 to 8:30. What do you say?
Yeah.
No, so that's one of the reasons why I started the Knightsville Porch Jam that I had going for a few years pre-COVID, and it was kind of selfish reasons. I was like, this place is cool. This would be perfect for like an open mic or something similar to that, which is what it was, and I could do it on a Sunday afternoon after church. Like, you know, you got to think about church in the South.
You got to give people the chance to, you know what? I mean, honestly, the people who are going to be watching the football, you don't need them anyway.
And you don't want to screen up because then you got the cheering and the yelling while you're trying to sing your heart out. So I'm just going
to go for it. I got more.
All right.
And any thoughts of bringing Knightsville back post-COVID?
No, well, so unfortunately the general store closed, and so it's under new ownership, and it's I think it's a barbecue place and something else now. There's a really cool little place down the road from there called Lux. Lux Espresso and Wine Bar, I think is what they call it. But they've got an outdoor space, just a killer outdoor space. It's so cool. And I've played there a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I really dig it. I organized the Edisto Blackwater Boogie, and so that takes up a lot of time.
Sure.
And so coming into this year, I have, I really, coming into 2022,
yeah,
I want to get started on that earlier. Last year with the boogie, we weren't able to start planning until like the end of May because of COVID.
You had to know if you could do it or not.
Yeah, nobody knew what was going to happen. And so everything was just smushed into a short period of time. So I'm going to try to spread that out more. And I think I'm going to focus on a couple of my own, focus on this album.
Yeah.
And I have a couple other projects related to that I'm hoping to get rolling. So
awesome.
I think rather than trying to start anything new, I think I'm going to stick with what I got. And
sure.
But I say that and I'll probably
well,
I get an idea and I'm like, let's do that.
Oh, you go all in, man. And one thing that I've noticed is, and that's something I'm trying to do with this podcast and this live music thing, is you see a thing you want and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you're like, so this should be a thing. I'm going to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And I'd actually been to Lux one time. Ben invited me out there.
Yeah.
I think you guys were like trading weeks and I missed your week. Yeah. But yeah, Lux is cool. Lux is cool.
Yep.
So the Blackwater Boogie, you got a date picked out for this year?
October 7th through 9th.
Awesome.
Yep. And I'm hoping you'll come out there this year, man.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Awesome.
I think the first year, I think you'd actually asked me, and it was right when I booked something up. And then I will pencil that in the calendar.
October 7th through 9th. And then this year was kind of weird because we didn't know what to expect with COVID. And so we eliminated one of the stages and kind of downsized things. So there were a lot of people that I wish could have been there that we just didn't have the time for. But
I gotcha.
It turned out really good this year. We had almost twice the ticket sales as we did in 2019. People loved it. The whole weekend, I only got like 3 complaints out of like close to 1,000 people that were there, and they were all minor. And one thing that people say, I've heard people say frequently about it, is like, it just feels like family. Like people say that a lot about it. And so that to me is really cool because my family won't talk to me, but I got these people who are my family,
right.
Who are my boogie family. So
that's awesome. Man.
It's all like, and I think for me, probably my biggest passion in life has always been helping people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why, as a Jehovah's Witness, I was like really into it, because I thought I was helping people when I was going and knocking on their doors. Like I thought I was helping them to come to a better way of life and come to know God and like all these things. I thought, and so that was my way of helping people then. But now, like I get to experience such joy, like more joy than I ever experienced knocking on someone's door or studying the Bible with somebody, and not just knock that. If that does it for somebody, that's great. But like being able to bring people together and create a sense of community where people can connect and feel emotion and a range of emotions and be able to just experience a moment in life that's pure and good and happy. Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
I've playing around and stuff. It's especially like going to open mics. When you go to open mics, you're playing for other musicians.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, playing in bars, you're playing for people who just happen to be there.
Right. Yeah.
And or maybe your musician buddy has a night off and comes and sees you. But I've had a few occasions where people come out and they're like, well, we're not musicians. We just really are into the music. And to me, I'm not knocking musicians who see music, and I'm not knocking people who just show up and enjoy something. But to not have a horse in the race and show up for music is like, I don't know. That makes it special for me to have somebody who's just like, oh, we like it, especially when, on the occasion where they actually like songs you wrote.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome. When you play a song and someone comes up and like, at the end of the song drops a tip in your jar, or in between songs comes up and says that song like touched me for some reason or whatever. Like that's it's awesome. I'm
always so, if I'm ever in a place and I see a musician and I go to put a tip in that tip jar, I always say, play what you want to play. Because man, how many times are you out there and somebody comes up and it's almost like they're holding a 5 hostage until you play like whatever song this is, and it's like keep your blood money, man. I'm just I don't this monkey doesn't dance. Who goes to a place and says like, I want to hear this specific song?
Right. $5 doesn't cover that, buddy. Like,
no, right.
You got 150 because it's going to take me like 6 hours to learn that song.
Right. And like to wash my soul clean afterwards.
Oh yeah. No, I had someone give me 20 one time and ask me to play. Oh, what was it? American Pie. Is it American Pie? Bye, Miss American Pie. Drove the ship. That song is freaking hard, man.
There's like 18 verses, and
that song is so. I was okay, I'll try it, and I pulled it up, and I had an iPad.
Yeah.
And I tried to play it. I made it through the first verse, and I was like, I'm sorry, that's your $20 worth because I don't know how to do this.
And also, there's a thing where like, I don't have a particularly versatile voice, so I'm not going to try to sing something I'm not going to sound good at.
Right,
like, there's 1,000 songs out there that I love dearly, that I just couldn't deliver on, so I'm not going to try. It has to fall within our wheelhouse, you know?
Exactly.
When it comes to writing your own songs, do you have like kind of tried and true methods, or does it kind of just sneak up on you when you're not paying attention?
So mainly it's just spur of the moment stuff for me. When the inspiration hits, I grab it and go. I've been more methodical about it. I spent a little while, like I went out to Nashville back in the early 2000s, like 2002, I think. And I met with some record companies out there, and they, I got positive feedback, which was nice because a lot of times you don't get positive any feedback.
Not in Nashville, no.
No. And they said, we really like your stuff, but we want to see more of it. Because at that time, I think I'd written maybe 60 or 70 songs. I don't know. They said, go home and write 100 songs and come back. And then my first daughter was born, and so
now were they looking for the songs, or were they looking for the performer?
They were looking for the songs. So I was trying to just get songs published as a songwriter.
Yep.
And so I guess publishing houses, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah.
In Nashville they just sell songs.
Yeah, it's a factory. Right. I mean, they make a song and they'll say, "Oh, this sounds good for such and such person," and then it turns into a hit because they know how to massage it.
Right. So, exactly. Yeah. So that's what so I did that, and again, I lost my place, Eric. Where am I?
Nashville.
Nashville. Yeah. So I went out there in 2002 and talked to them and got good feedback and everything, but nothing ever came of it. Yeah. And we were talking. What was the last question you asked me? Because I'm sorry. I was
just any methods on writing songs.
Methods. Yeah. So during that, sorry, man.
Oh, no problem, man. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Nothing will make you more senile than having 4 children.
I'll keep that in mind.
So during that time period, I was a lot more methodical about my writing, and I was making an effort to write every day.
So you would sit down to write.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a lot of songs during that period.
Sure.
A lot of crummy songs.
And you gotta write them.
You gotta write the bad ones to get to the good ones, is what I always say. So now with the way that my time is and my schedule and my family and all the other things that I have going on, it's kind of like when lightning strikes, I grab it and go, and then I kind of let it sit until it happens again. Do you like demo stuff on a phone and basically?
Yep. You gotta love the phone, man.
Yeah, just record it on the phone, and then it's there. I can go back to it. So
now when you start into a song, do you ever like think this reminds me of so and so, and then you kind of channel a certain artist, or do you think?
I can't say that I've ever done that. I don't think I'm good enough to channel anybody.
I feel you there. Now, if you said your earlier influences were like Beatles, Dylan, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you still listen to them?
I don't listen to them as much anymore. Now sure. I'm really kind of into the I don't know if you'd call it new age folk or what. Like okay, like the new. I like a lot of newer folk. Okay. I like Langhorne Slim and Joe Purdy and Ray LaMontagne and just kind of, and those guys are all kind of mainstream kind of stuff, but I just put on Spotify and see what happens.
You're a shuffler.
What comes up? Yeah.
Now, do you have any albums that you're like you put on an album? Are you ever in the mood to just listen to an album?
Yeah. So in 2020 I got into Mount Joy. That
was a good record last year.
Yeah, and you know that song Astrovan? Are you familiar with that? I love that song. Yeah. I played that on repeat for weeks, man.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that song. My kids even knew the lyrics of that song, which are not really appropriate necessarily for a child, but it's fine.
Yeah,
they're learning. So and I went back and I listened to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I was like, I've heard songs from that, but I've never listened to the whole album through. And then once I did, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Yeah. That's the only way to hear that record. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an album guy. And it comes from, I'm a huge Beatles fan, and still am. And like, I'm to the point where if I hear a song and I don't hear the song after it, it feels like, when you have to sneeze and you can't sneeze and you just have that weird feeling.
Yeah.
To me, it's like that. Don't get me wrong. I love the convenience of a billion songs in my pocket that can stream.
Yeah.
I love that algorithms can introduce me to new things based upon what I like.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is trying to shove things down my throat.
Right.
I wonder if record labels have an influence in that.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't wonder too hard.
No, it's definitely happening. But at the same time, I miss seeing a big old album cover.
Yeah.
I used to read the liner notes as a kid because I don't know, I'm a production minded guy. Yeah. I wanted to see who played on it, who recorded it.
My parents used to have a record player, and the record that I listened to the most was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Do you remember what goes up, spinning wheel must come down? I listened to that, man. And that album, I read it, listened to that thing front and back, all the time. It was so good. And I still go back and listen to it. I'm like, man, it just all those horns, they just killed that album.
They were so doing good. The thing, man.
Right, so good. And so we have a turntable at home now, and my 6-year-old son, he's like really into Nirvana and Blink-182.
Okay.
My wife has been kind of introducing him to some of this music, and so he'll go in there and put on the Nirvana albums and stuff, and just like rock out. And he plays drums too. So
awesome. Yeah, awesome.
He's learning.
So if you had to pick, I don't know, call it 5, doesn't have to be 5. If you were to say these are my 5 favorite songwriters, is that a list you could sort of come up with for the moment? It doesn't have to be all time.
Let me see. 5 favorite songwriters. I mean, Bob Dylan is always like, and I know it's cliche, but
cliches happen for a reason.
It's him. I mean, he's just amazing. I've read a bunch of Bob Dylan books, and he's just so weirdly fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, he's an enigma even to himself.
Yeah. But beyond that, I like John Craigie a lot. he does a lot of kind of humorous stuff, I think.
Okay.
But as far as I'm trying to think of favorite songwriters, and I know that they're there, and I'm letting them down right now, and I feel terrible about that. And I just want to apologize. You guys will never hear this, but Bob
Dylan listens to this podcast. You know that, right?
So Bruce Springsteen, I've never been a Springsteen fan personally. He doesn't do anything for me. But as far as his songwriting goes, like when other people do his songs, I'm always like, that's an awesome song. And I'm like, who wrote it? Oh, Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, like, of course.
Yeah, just looking at their catalog, it's undeniable.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I don't think about favorites a lot.
Yeah.
And like my parents, so my kids will always ask me like, Dad, what's your favorite color? And I was like, I don't know. What's your favorite kind of ice cream? I have a hard time picking favorites, and I think it's because I want everyone to feel loved equally. Okay, you don't want the chocolate and vanilla.
Sure,
they deserve equal love, man.
I'm in different moods all the time.
Right?
There are some songs and albums that I just listen to all the time, but most of the time, I just feel like, and it's a weird thing. Like, I've been listening to a lot of like really produced pop lately.
Really?
and it's mainly like trying to deconstruct it and see how they made it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got like 3 or 4 people writing those songs a lot of the time. Yeah.
I was talking to Ben, and I said, a lot of like current pop is like McDonald's French fries. It's not really food.
Right.
But it's scientifically made for you to want it.
I mean, talking about songwriters, like Billie Eilish and her brother are fantastic. Like
they're doing it in a bedroom,
right? They're amazing, really great songwriters. And then I would be remiss. I can't believe I didn't think of this guy, but a guy named Pierce Edens out of North Carolina.
Okay,
he actually played at the Boogie both years, and his songwriting, he does like Appalachian rock and roll.
Okay.
But his songwriting is just so soulful, and some of the lines that he puts out there just break your mind apart when you hear them. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
How did you put those words together?
Right.
In that way? It's kind of amazing.
I think sometimes some of the best songs, and especially lyrics, hit you in a way where you're like, man, that was obvious. Like, it was right in front of us all.
Yeah.
How did you make something so obvious come out?
Right.
To me, that's the best stuff. It's anybody can write stuff that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as much as I love Wilco, Jeff Tweedy actually flat out just says, I write stuff that doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
That way I don't have to explain it.
It's one way to do it. He's very good at it.
He is. He has have you read his book? How to Write
No.
He has a book called How to Write One Song. And he basically is just like, just write things. It's like, thanks, Jeff. Thanks a lot. But I don't know. That's not my style. Or even what I gravitate towards listening wise. I want to hear somebody telling me. I almost want to hear somebody telling me what I already know, but in a different way.
Yeah.
No,
that makes sense. And I think the reason behind that is because you can relate. Like, we like the things we know, but when we hear it in a different way, it's like, I know that, but I didn't know that.
It's obvious, but why didn't I come across it?
Right. Yeah. Obviously. Yep. Definitely.
So the recordings you're working on, or that are, held hostage currently, is it just solo or other instruments on it?
No. So there's other instruments. With the stuff I did with Josh is very pretty stripped down, but there's some other instrumentation in there for sure. And I recorded at a studio actually not far from here, like half a mile from here. A guy who's been a radio technician, like for radio companies, Bruce.
I know Bruce.
Roberts.
Yeah, I know Bruce.
He's such a cool dude, and I've recorded a few songs with Bruce, and it's just that same thing. It's like they're right there. I could probably release them just as they are, and it would be fine. But I just haven't finished. Like, I don't know. They're not done to me, and they're not done cooking. So they're just sitting. Bruce has had them for like a year and a half, and they're not doing anything. And so, other instrumentation. You know, I play with a band a lot of times.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan said, I remember reading, he said that any one man with a guitar can beat an army of a band any day.
Yeah.
If he knows what he's doing.
Sure. Yeah.
And that stuck with me when I was younger, and I was like, I just want to be that guy who does my thing, and like I'm just as good as any band that's out there. That was kind of like my mindset.
Yeah.
And then I started playing with other people, and I was like, this is fun.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, you got to have the right people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen a couple videos of you playing with like a percussionist and a cellist.
Yeah, yeah.
And they get what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's so important to have somebody like, okay, man, you drive.
Yeah.
We'll support. We'll serve the song.
Yeah. No, and I'm so like the folks that I play with, I'm so lucky to have met them, and to be able to make music, even just when we practice. We always just have fun, you know.
Awesome.
It's a good time, and I don't think we've ever been perfect, but we have fun, and you know, we're doing the thing that we love together, and so that I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you're right. Music is ultimately meant to be shared, what you were saying earlier, and to find those people that are actually, you know, on your team.
Yeah.
It seems like in Charleston there's a lot of people that play a lot of instruments, and they're concerned about getting gigs and getting paid.
Yeah.
And when money's the first thought, I think some things fall by the wayside. I went to college, and I was in all kinds of bands in college where it was just people, we weren't going to make any money.
Right.
We were just trying to like make the best thing we could as a unit.
Right.
And that's a thing I miss. And it could be this age too. You know, everybody has kids and a job, and they're trying to hold up a thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, your wife only lets you leave the house with an instrument so many times and not come home with any money. So I get it, but man, I'm happy for you that you found those people who will, you know, get in the boat with you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I got to say, in Charleston, we're really, I feel like we have a disproportionate amount of like talented people here.
Oh yeah.
You know, we have so many really, really talented people. I could name probably 30 off the top of my head that are just awesome, that go out and like, there are people busting their asses every week, grinding, playing 3 and 4 gigs on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
But that's how they're making their living, and they're doing that because they love it, and that like they've gotten to the point where they can do that, and that's all they want to do is make music. And I don't know for myself personally if that I don't know that that's ever where I want to be.
Right.
Right. You know, with having kids and everything, I just couldn't be there.
Sure.
But I respect the work ethic. Like some of these young guys that are out there doing it, and sorry, I said guys. That was very
guys and gals.
Sexist of me. Guys and gals.
It's funny when you talk about this. There is one guitar player.
Yep.
We're thinking of the same guy.
Yep.
Who's about for my money is about the most talented guitar player in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're both talking about David.
Yep.
Yeah.
George Sink.
Yeah, and
that's
he is
my man.
and he is a guy that I feel like when somebody says like, "Oh, you have a gift," thank you for the compliment.
Right.
But that guy practices more in a year than we've practiced in our entire life. Yeah. I mean, it is completely earned.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
And
he's worked for every lick that he plays.
Yeah, so I hope one day I can do something with him on guitar.
All right. Oh yeah, you got to, man. He's awesome, and I'm fortunate enough to play with him sometimes. And,
awesome.
David reminds me of a kid that I knew when I was in that guitar class. There was this kid that he was into metal, but he could play, I mean, just like all this crazy Megadeth, like Metallica leads, like all the stuff that was Slayer, like all the stuff that was big at the time. He could do it. And I think he was like 2 grade. I think he was in like 9th or 10th grade. And he just ripped like amazingly. And I was like, dude, how are you so good? Like what, like, how's that even possible that you can do that? I'm struggling to play like string 4 chords together.
Right,
and you're just shredding. And he's like, oh, I practice 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I practice 8 hours a day.
He did all the not fun stuff, like playing to a metronome and playing scales, and that stuff's not fun.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you mean you play 8 hours a day? You go to school every day, right? And he's like, yeah, well, I get home from school at 3:30.
Yeah.
And so I have a snack and I do my homework and I'm done by 4:30. And then I play till midnight, and then I wake up and I go to school.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Wow.
And I'm like, holy mackerel. Well, I can't knock that. That you deserve to be awesome because you're putting the work in. And that's what I think of when I think of David. Like he's just always putting the work in, practicing, and he's an impressive dude. So
the thing that impresses me is the few times I've heard him play is if you have that level of virtuosity, it's easy to overplay. It's easy to not play to the song.
Right.
It's easy to say, look at me. It's
yeah.
But he serves a song. I went to college with a couple guys that one of them was a drummer that he could do all the metal things. He could do every little double bass metal thing you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was in a band with him, and he did exactly what was needed for the song every time, even if it was something that would bore Ringo Starr.
Right. Yeah.
And by the same token, I also was in a band with a guitar player that was the same way. And where I went to college, I was in the School of Music. I was actually a trumpet player.
Oh, cool.
But I knew a whole bunch of virtuosic guitarists that had no taste whatsoever. I mean, it was just so mechanical. It was perfect down to the metronome, but to still be able to serve that song and play exactly what something's needed with the feel, and it's just special. And,
it really is, yeah. And to hold yourself back, because I've played with other lead guitarists here locally that, and I'm not knocking them at all. Like they're good, but
I can't do what they do.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely can't do what they do. That's why I asked them to play with me.
Right.
But they play a lot of times. They play for themselves.
Yeah.
And so when you have that, it's not, it can still, it sounds okay, but it's not. It just the feel is lost.
Right.
Know? Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, like that's why I don't have a band currently. It's because it has to be that right group of people that have that right mindset, that everybody has at least a compatible vision in mind.
Right.
It has to be dudes you can get along with.
Yeah.
Not dudes and some folks you can get along with. Yeah. I'm doing it too. But
we're learning, Eric.
Hey,
we're progressing.
At least we know we don't know.
That's right.
That can't be said about religion either.
Oh yeah.
Know that you don't know.
Man, if people just knew that they didn't know, the world would be such a better place.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So you're the 4th guest I've had on the podcast. You are going to be on the bill with, do you know Chris Dodson at all?
Yeah, I've met Chris a few times. Yeah. We worked together a little bit. I've never played music with him, so I'm excited to do that.
I've actually never formally met Chris.
Really?
I've seen him play, but he was in the middle of a gig, and I didn't want to go. And it's one of those situations where he's like the busiest dude in Charleston when it comes to going around and playing gigs.
He's
another one of
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that's grinding and practicing,
grinding
and just,
it out
constantly.
Yeah. He's in duos and he's in trios, and I'm excited to talk to him. I'm excited to have him on the bill with you.
Yeah, me too.
And also, you know Scotty Oliver?
Yeah.
All right. He's in Blue Sphere and also co-owner of Accent on Wine.
Yeah.
Have you played out there?
Yeah, I haven't played out there yet, but I'd like to. It's a cool spot.
Play. Yeah. He's got a record out that I think he made the record and then like just had a whole bunch of stuff in his life he had to do.
Right.
And so he really hasn't been going out there and giving the record its due for playing the solo shows and everything. So I'm excited to talk to.
Well, I think he's pretty busy with Accent on Wine too.
Oh yeah, it keeps him super busy, and they're finally getting back together and doing some Blue Sphere shows here too.
Oh, nice.
But it'll be cool to hear Scotty doing some of his own tunes. It'll be cool to hear you guys playing out at Free House. Free House was nice enough to let me try this thing out there once a month, and
that's so cool, man.
Do original music, and it'll be awesome, man. January 23rd.
Yeah, you got to love venues and owners that are open to new ideas and having this sort of thing. And I want to thank you, man, for doing this podcast. I listened to, like I said, I was listening to Noah's piece or podcast, and the way that you're just good at what you're doing, man. And this is something I think that hasn't been done here in Charleston, and I think it's great, man. You're doing an awesome job giving us a chance to talk a little bit and share our music, and providing a venue to where we can share that with others too. So,
well, I appreciate that so much, man. I hope that in the future, when the albums and the recordings drop, that you can come back and talk about them. And looking forward to the showcase on the 23rd. Thanks for hanging out with me now.
Yeah, man. You too.
Well, Dan's an incredibly nice and interesting guy, isn't he? Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dan. Be sure to check out Dan Riley in Songs of the Unsung on social media. And be sure to come out to Free House Brewing on January 23rd to see the next Songwriter Showcase. On the bill is Dan, Chris Dodson, and Scotty Oliver. Free House is an organic brewery, tap room, and outdoor beer garden situated on the banks of the historic and natural Ashley River. We brew beer as we wish it to be, organic, local, and seasonal. With over 24 taps, including gluten-free options and house-made organic lemonade, we have something for all palates. Free House is open to everyone and welcomes all guests with a smile and a cold beer. Inquire about hosting your event or special occasion with us at info@freehousebeer.com.